How are you doing this morning? Great? It's beautiful weather, I hate to be here. But for your love, I'm here. Alright? So, in this next 30 minutes, 40 minutes, expect that you will not be just sitting over there, but interacting with me. I don't like to just present, I want to engage all the participants. Alright? So each one of you, just consider, look at your tables, and you must be seeing 3 envelopes. 1, 2, and 3. Do you see that? Tell me, raise your hand. Alright. So you will be asked to open one of these envelopes when the time comes. So be ready for that. And then we will be working on some exercise to do that. Are you ready? Now, in this session right now, I will explain to you 3 things only. One is the importance of innovation. The second is, what is this elusive innovation? And thirdly, how SAP helps you to innovate. Again, importance of innovation, what is innovation, and how SAP helps you innovate. Right? Does it sound exciting? To begin with, I have to ask you to do one thing. From each of the tables, even if you are not sitting with a colleague from your own company, consider yourself as team. So we have about 10 teams over here. Alright? So each of the teams, at this point, answer one question that I'm posing to you. What is your top business priority? So open the envelope number 1 in your table. Take out the 3 answers that I've already put in. And within your team, you will have 30 seconds to discuss and agree upon what is your top priority. Now these 3 options, please go ahead if you can help me do that. So the 3 options are, is growth the number 1 priority? Is cost the number 1 priority? Or is beating the competition? So within your team, you have 30 seconds before the countdown starts. So once you have decided, you take that one of you volunteer from each team to raise that and show it to the others. Alright? So the countdown is about to start. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now keep it up, keep it up. From each table, I want to see one. Alright, so I see growth, I see beating competition, and I see cost over here. Great. Now let me just tell you one thing. I have one answer which will help you achieve all the 3. Growth, saving of the cost, and beating your competition. Can anybody guess what's that? And you are welcome to scream out at me. I not only welcome it, but I encourage it. Alright? Let me tell you that. I hope you can read it. Can you read it? Delight your customers. Now you must be wondering, how delighting my customers is going to help me achieve growth. Maybe that's evident. How it will help me beat competition. Maybe that is evident too. But how is it going to help me lower the cost? You're going to find out in the next 30 minutes. Now to help you understand why this is so important, I will give you 3 examples. One from, all 3 are business examples. One from more than a century back. One about 3 decades back, and one more recent one. Now, the first example, more than a century back, in 1908, somebody in Michigan came up with a product that revolutionized that industry. And that product was, rings a bell, tea. Let me just guide you more. Model T. Anybody knows what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the first ever automobile from Henry Ford. Now, if you transport yourself back 100 years, people used to ride horses or carts to go from point A to point B. And automobile was already invented 20 years prior to that by a French engineer. So what did Henry Ford actually do to just transform? What did it do is, he innovated in his supply chain so that instead of the expertise coming to build your car, the car moved around an assembly line, right? And then the final product just changed the mind frame. If you were to go and ask before 1908 any customer, what do you want from your transportation? They would ask you, well, we want a faster horse. We want a more comfortable saddle. We want a more comfortable cart. We want more comfortable horseshoes so that the horse can go farther. We want some nutritional elements for horse so that they can ride farther without getting tired. What did you do? The actual needs were not faster horse. The actual need of the customer was to go from point A to point B in the fastest manner. So what he did was he understood the needs. Those were not stated at all. Those were the latent needs of the customer. And I'll be talking to you about that, how we will help you to do that. So again, Model T, Henry Ford, what he did was to not just look at what customers were saying, but understand what they actually needed and then address that need with innovation. Second example, from 30 years back. Let me write the third and fourth letters of the alphabet. When I say CD, what comes to your mind? I'm talking about compact discs. Compact disc. Now Sony invented compact disc about early 80s. If you go transport again back yourself in early 80s, how were you accessing information or accessing media? You had tapes, right? So if you were at the beginning of the tape and you needed to go to the end of the tape to access the information you so badly need, what you had to do? You had to fast forward it. And you have to wait, all right. And some of us remember it. I actually remember the cassette player we used to have when I first moved to States. I was a student and I was very tied up with cash. I bought a $1 tape recorder, tape player, and then we used to do that. You keep waiting for your song to come up. And then you realize, no, I need to go back again. Then what you do? You just rewind and wait. So what did Sony do? If you were to ask a customer at that time, what do you want from your media? They would say, I want faster forward and faster rewind capabilities. But actually, that's not what they wanted. They wanted immediate access to information. And that's what Sony did. Sony did not invent the random access. Random access was already there as part of the main memory. What they did, they invented and innovated the format in which the media is stored. So that allows random access. So again, the example is, both these examples, the companies were able to go beyond these stated needs to find out the latent needs and then innovate to grow. And now final example, more recent. I think each one of you have in your pocket as well. From a company, I'm sorry for my drawing. Apple Incorporated from Cupertino, California. That's where I lived for 12 years. Now, before 2007, the smartphones were already there, from Research in Motion, the Blackberries, from HTC, the sliding keyboard smartphones. They were able to make phone calls with it, they were able to access email and browse internet, and they were able to even listen to media, right? If you were to ask a customer, what do you want? Customer, you hear me? Customer did not articulate what they actually wanted. Well, they want something better. What they did was, it was so cumbersome at that time to really configure your device to be able to do all these things that they just revolutionized that industry, not just one industry, maybe 3 industries they touched, right? So they enabled it. So again, these 3 examples highlight the importance of delighting the customer, right? Now, what does this have to do with innovation, right? And what does this have to do with SAP, right? To help you answer that, I would ask you to, again, engage in the second exercise that we have prepared for you. When you hear the term innovate, what does come to your mind? So in each of your teams again, open the envelope number 2 and select the answer that best suits your understanding of innovation. And the 3 options that you have is, number 1, creativity. That means generation of a lot of ideas. Number 2, invention. That means converting one of those ideas into some product that somebody can use. And third is cross-ideation, from taking idea from one function or one industry and applying it to other function, other industry. So once you have selected among your team, please rate it and show to the other folks as well. All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, do I have all the answers? We have cross-ideation, we have creativity, and we have invention. Now this was again a trick question. I'm going to tell you the answer which is going to satisfy all of these three conditions. And that is, actually I alluded to during this presentation as well. It is human needs. I'm not just saying why. What does creativity has to do with human needs? What does cross-ideation have to do with human needs? And what does invention has to do with that? Now, in the past, if you look at history, and even in your life, you have obviously, at this level, you have managed a lot of projects. And you must be familiar with a lot of the projects in which they were more, the reason you chose it because they had expectations of being successful. However, they were not as successful as they should have been. And the reason was they did not address the human needs. Right? So, if you satisfy those human needs and end up delighting your customers, you will be able to not just grow, but at a cost that is envy of the industry, but also be able to beat competition. Now let me drill more into that. How were Henry Ford, Steve Jobs, and Sony was able to go beyond what was stated as the need? For that, let me explain to you how you understand that. So, for any human being, these are your customers, right? You can see what they're seeing. You can hear what they're hearing. You can see how they are interacting with your product or service, what they're doing. But to really get to the bottom of human needs, what you need to go is beyond what is on the face of it. To see, to understand what they think and what they feel. Only then you can understand. And really, and what this, if you can understand what the other person is thinking about and what they're feeling, you have what we call empathy. It's easier said than done. So I see that a lot of you are sitting over here, and some are very interested in what I have to say, and some are actually checking their cell phones, because there's some other important aspects going on. So I can feel that their time is valuable, your time is valuable. So I need to make this session interesting for you, otherwise you won't be here, right? So Emma explained about SAP's focus to Saudi, Paul and Denise talked about SAP's innovations. I'm going to talk about how you can transform that into addressing, understanding, having empathy, understanding of the human needs of your customers so that you can delight them and achieve the success and win. Right? So it is very easy to say, for me to say what this empathy is. But actually, how can you do that? How SAP helps you understand your customers more so that you can address the needs. All of this technological advancements that SAP has to offer, like HANA technology that Paul talked about. HANA, by the way, I'll tell you at the end that HANA will let you go to the moon and back in the time it takes you to go to your car and come back. Keep that thought in mind. I'll tell you at the end how it does it. Alright? But all that technology is useless unless what it does. Any answer? Unless it addresses the human need. Right? So when I say how SAP does it actually, that is where design thinking comes into play. So design thinking does two things. And coming back to a lot of projects that you guys have run and executed, some of them have been successful, some of them have not been so successful. But all those projects had these two things in common. The number one was viability. Whenever some person within your organization or some team comes to you as a chief executive officer or chief financial officer of a project idea, you look at the viability. What's in it for me? What's in it for the company? Does it have the ROI? Does it have the manageable TCO? Right? So the business benefit part. And then you ask the second question is, feasibility. Right? Whether it's technologically feasible, whether our resources that we have or our partners, they can help us do it in the time to really attain this viability. But still a lot of these projects, they do not succeed or they do not live up to these expectations. Why? And that's where I'll complete this picture. By writing desirability. So they do not address the human needs. You have not really articulated well in advance who are the main stakeholders this project is going to benefit and how they benefit. So what design thinking does is brings these three together. You're already working on the viability angle, the feasibility angle, but design thinking adds the desirability angle. Now, how do we do that? Okay, one question for you. When I say the most important mathematician the world has ever seen, what name comes to your mind? Anybody? What? Great. He was a chemist, isn't it? No? Mathematician, great. Okay, more recent. Let me give you Albert Einstein, right? He said one thing, that the problems we face today cannot be solved by the same thinking that were used to create those problems. Again, let me repeat it. The problems we see today cannot be solved by the same thinking that were used to create those problems. Now, what is the thinking he's talking about? And that's where design thinking also brings that, and you must see on the poster as well. Somebody comes up with an idea. And let me just all these three are important. I'll keep it. Somebody comes up with an idea. What do we start doing then? We start asking 5 questions, or actually 6 questions. What are those questions? What is this idea? How is it going to help me? How will we implement it? What will it do? Where can we implement it? Right? And why are we doing this? All these things. So what we are doing is we are actually using our analytical thinking hat to really see the merits of those ideas. But have you ever thought about where did that idea come from? That idea was not a result of analytical thinking. It was a result of creative thinking. So what design thinking does is actually helps you bring it together. So what we do is when we work with our customers, we generate a lot of ideas with your teams. So what we do is, I as a facilitator, and we have other facilitators as well, what we do is we essentially generate the ideas to helping you serve your customers better. And then we also synthesize those ideas into this aspect. Which ones are viable, feasible, and what human needs are solved. So that's where you can distinguish yourself from your competition and really delight your customers in the end. Now at this point, I'd just like to define what we mean by customers. So customer is not just your end customers. For example, if you're an engineering and construction organization, one customer orders you to build a building. So that's one customer who's paying for you to deliver a project. But that building, depending on the purpose it serves, it could be a retail mall, it could be an airport, it could be a plant, or it could be a housing structure. So the inhabitants who will be using that building are also your customers. And not only that, the final thing is that, just a simplistic depiction of your value chain, you serve your customers, the end customers, you have your suppliers, and you have operations over here that converts what you buy into adding more value and to serve your customers. And then we have finance and human resources, which really end-to-end serve the customers. So, as SAP defines customers, is any stakeholder with a need. So essentially, you can do this exercise, design thinking exercise, for not just your customers, but for your operations team, for your suppliers, for your procurement staff, for your finance, for your HR organization. Right? So when you do that, you really understand the needs which are not just stated, but which you have to get to. That's what we have. A lot of examples. For example, we work with the largest auto distributor in the world, and then we laid out the customer journey of their end customer from the time they start thinking about buying a car to the time they actually purchase it, they bring it back for service, and then they're thinking of switching the car to an upgrade. Similarly, we did for an oil and gas company as well on different areas, into the operations area, right, into the supply chain area. We did that. And we generated a lot of ideas that are now being implemented. And it's helping them grow at a reasonable cost as well as beat their competition. Right? So does it make sense that this approach? So what the next exercise is sort of a call to action for you is look out for the envelope number 3 on your tables again, and it will have sort of a gift for each one of you that you can take home. And the next step that you should be doing is you should be calling up your customer SAP account executive who's helping you understand SAP's technology, and then ask them to schedule a design thinking workshop with you. What we will do, we will come back and we will arrange, we will discuss with you, and then we can organize a workshop for you so that we can understand, we can select the kind of customers you want to talk about, the stakeholders. We can also help you understand the human needs over here, which are not really evident, but we have different methodologies to really understand and go beyond what is just observable into what your customers are actually feeling and thinking. And then once we understand that, we also build a roadmap for you as to how you can actually achieve those goals and delight your customers by having the best viability, feasibility, and desirability angles covered, and then you can reach your competition. Does that make sense? So please reach out to your account executives or directly to me. I'm here. I can give you my card. You can reach out to me directly. I am driving innovation in Saudi Arabia and across MENA as well. So we'll be delighted to do this session with you. I see the azan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.